Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down the literal anatomy of a disaster, the incredibly tragic 1846 journey of the Donner Party. Just imagine setting out in search of a completely better life, risking absolutely everything you have, only to find yourself trapped in one of the most horrifying ordeals imaginable. Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today. Let's get into it. Let's establish our core contrast right up front, because it's a stark one. On one side, you have this bright, shining American dream that these immigrants were chasing. You know, the promise of fertile land, a mild climate, basically a fresh beginning out in California. But on the other side, the actual reality was a chilling, deadly winter nightmare waiting for them in the Sierra Nevada. We're talking about one of the deadliest survival stories in American history. So how exactly did that shift from hope to horror happen? Let's trace it.
Section 1. The Dream West, Hope and the California Trail.
So, let's rewind to the spring of 1846. Thousands of Americans were eagerly looking west, right? But who were these people? Well, they weren't reckless adventurers or, hardened mountain men. We're looking at ordinary families, specifically the Donner and Reed families, along with several others. Nearly 90 people packed up and left Illinois. These were parents, young kids, farmers, business owners, people who sold pretty much everything they owned just to load up their wagons and join these massive wagon trains stretching across the continent. They were chasing hope. And if everything went according to plan, they fully expected to reach California before winter. But as you're about to see, the plan completely fell apart.
Section 2. The Fatal Shortcut, the Hastings Cutoff.
While they were out on the trail, the travelers started hearing whispers about a new route, a shortcut. It was heavily promoted by this lawyer and explorer named Lansford Hastings, who claimed his cutoff would save them some incredibly valuable time. But there was a massive red flag here. Hastings himself had barely even traveled his own route with wagons, and worse, experienced pioneers out there were explicitly warning the party against taking it. Yet, despite those stark warnings, many members of the Donner Party decided to roll the dice and take the shortcut anyway. It would end up being one of the absolute worst decisions in the entire history of westward migration.
That single decision, it led to a cascade of logistical failures. Instead of saving time, this so-called shortcut forced their heavy wagons through incredibly dense, brutal mountain terrain and then spit them right out into the scorching heat of the Great Salt Lake Desert. Step by step, a total disaster unfolded. Their water completely dried up. Draft animals were literally collapsing from sheer exhaustion. Wagons were shattering and precious supplies were dwindling fast. By the time this battered, exhausted group finally managed to reconnect with the main California Trail, well, they hadn't saved any time at all. Actually, they had lost several crucial weeks.
Section 3. Trapped by Winter, the Sierra Nevada Trap. The pacing of this disaster it's devastating. Think about it. In the spring of 1846, they leave Illinois with perfect optimism. They're racing toward the Sierra Nevada mountains, knowing full well that if they can just cross before the heavy snowfall, they'll make it. But in late October of 1846, nature unleashed its fury. Massive, relentless snowstorms slammed into the mountains. Within mere days, literally days, more than 20 feet of snow completely buried the mountain passes. Just like that, the window for survival slammed shut, trapping the wagons entirely. They couldn't move a single inch farther. So, with their path forward walled off by a 20-foot barrier of snow, the emigrants had no choice. They desperately built crude cabins near what we now call Donner Lake, while others just had to huddle beneath makeshift tents. The temperature plunged rapidly. And looking at that heavy, impenetrable snowpack, they quickly realized a truly terrifying truth. There was going to be no rescue until spring. They were entirely on their own. The stage was set for a truly horrific ordeal.
Section 4. Hunger and Desperation, the Struggle to Stay Alive.
Now, at first, they naturally rationed what little food they had left, the flour, the beans, the dried meat. But soon enough, there was simply nothing left. The progression of their desperation is just devastating to think about. First, they moved to eating oxen that had already died in the cold. When those were gone, the horses disappeared. Then the family dogs were eaten. As total starvation set in, they resorted to boiling old leather, chewing on raw animal hides. Some even consumed tree bark just to put anything in their stomachs. Every single day became this terrifying, agonizing struggle to just stay alive. Parents had to watch helplessly as their kids cried from unrelenting hunger. Illness spread like wildfire, and one by one, people began to die.
Section 5. The Forlorn Hope, a Desperate Escape Attempt. 17. That's the number. In December, exactly 17 desperate, exhausted people strapped on handmade snowshoes to attempt an absolute nightmare of a journey through the blizzards. Their mission was straightforward, but frankly, almost impossible. Push through to civilization and bring back help. History actually remembers this specific, brave group as the Forlorn Hope.
But of course, the journey of the Forlorn Hope instantly became a nightmare of its own. Whiteout blizzards completely erased the trail, food vanished entirely, and several members just collapsed and died right there in the snow. To stay alive, the survivors had to face an unimaginable reality. They consumed the bodies of those who had already died. It was an absolute, stark necessity for survival, but man, it remains one of the darkest and most harrowing choices ever recorded in human history.
After more than a month of profound suffering, literally battling the elements and the extreme limits of their own bodies, just seven members of the Forlorn Hope finally managed to stagger into California settlements to alert the world to the disaster unfolding in the mountains. Section 6. Rescue and Tragedy. The Final Tally.
So starting in February 1847, multiple rescue teams fought their way back through that deep mountain snow to reach the stranded emigrants. And it was a grueling, agonizing process that dragged on over several months. You had rescuers physically carrying children to safety. Some adults were simply too weak to walk, while others flat out refused to leave their freezing family members behind. Ultimately, the final tally was incredibly tragic. Of the original 87 emigrants who started out with so much hope, 48 survived and 39 perished. Nearly half of the entire party was lost. It firmly cemented the Donner Party as a permanent, chilling symbol of how quickly hope can turn into utter catastrophe.
Section 7. Legacy of the Donner Party, the limits of human endurance.
This story still matters so much to us today. It's not remembered simply because of the starvation or even those horrifying choices made in the freezing dark. It endures because it reveals the very limits of human endurance. It's a stark reminder that survival is rarely simple. It shows us exactly how far ordinary people will go when they are backed into a corner and forced to make impossible choices.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on as we wrap up this explainer. What actually happens when ambition, a few catastrophic bad decisions, and an unforgiving nature all collide? Well, the story of the Donner Party is the answer. It shows us just how fragile human survival really is when the pursuit of a dream meets the brutal, unyielding reality of the natural world. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep questioning the history that shapes our world.